Imagine walking through the forest and hearing branches snap, not from wind, but from something huge, something watching you. Its breath rattles like thunder, its eyes glint from the shadows, and every instinct in your body screams run. Now, imagine a world where that nightmare was real, where the sky, the sea, and the ground were ruled by monsters beyond your wildest fears. Towering apes with the strength to crush bones, serpents long enough to swallow buses, and birds so massive they hunted like lions from the sky. These weren't creatures of myth, they were real. They walked the earth long before we did, and if they still roam today, humanity might never have stood a chance. Welcome to Midnight Hauntings, where the shadows of history whisper back. Subscribe and step into the dark with us as we uncover 10 terrifying beasts that once ruled our planet, creatures so nightmarish you'll be grateful they're gone. Because tonight, we're bringing them back, even if only in your nightmares. Long before humans learned to fear the dark itself was already filled with things worth fearing. In the ancient jungles of Asia, the air hung thick with mist and the smell of wet earth. There, deep among the bamboo forests, lived a creature that could have crushed a man with one swing of its arm, Gigantopithecus. Imagine an ape 3 meters tall, weighing over 1,000 pounds, its massive shadow blotting out the light. Though it fed on plants and bamboo, its sheer size and unimaginable strength made it a force of nature. Early humans might have crossed paths with it, staring up into a face that looked almost human but far too powerful. Gigantopithecus vanished around 300,000 years ago, perhaps hunted by those same early humans, or maybe it was the changing climate that silenced its thunderous steps forever. Still, when you walk through a quiet forest at dusk, you might wonder if something ancient still watches from between the trees. Far beneath those jungles, in the murky waters of prehistory, another nightmare crawled through the depths, the sea scorpion, or Pterygotus. It looked like a monstrous version of the scorpions we know today, only this one grew to over 1 meter in length, its claws sharp enough to shred through flesh, and its venom potent enough to stop a heart in seconds. Scientists still debate how toxic it truly was, but imagine being dragged under the surface by an armored predator with stingers the size of daggers. During its time, Earth was a playground of oversized horrors, dragonflies with wingspans like hawks, cockroaches the size of kittens, and millipedes that slithered longer than a man's body. The world must have felt like a fever dream, beautiful and terrible at once, but nothing on land compared to what lurked in the swamps and rivers of ancient South America. The Prehistoric, the monstrous ancestor of modern crocodiles, was more than twice the size of anything alive today. 13 meters long, its jaws could crush bone like paper. It was a silent killer, perfectly adapted to ambush. You would never see it coming. A ripple on the surface, a flicker beneath the water, then nothing. In a single snap, it could swallow a person whole. Fossil records suggest that this giant reptile might have even clashed with the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex and won. Its skull alone could stretch longer than an entire grown man. Imagine standing by the river's edge as the water stills, a shadow gliding beneath you. The sunlight disappears, the birds fall silent, and then the world erupts in violence, a flash of scales, a roar like the cracking of thunder, and you're gone, swallowed by something older than fear itself. That was the world of Prehistoric, where survival depended not on strength, but on the luck of never being noticed. These were not creatures of fantasy. They were real titans of a planet still young, when the rules of life and death were written in tooth and claw. Gigantopithecus ruled the forests, Pterygotus haunted the shallows, and Prehistoric reigned over the rivers. Together, they created an Earth that was not ours, a place where humans would have been nothing but prey, and yet, in a strange way, they shaped the path that led to us. When they fell, nature made room for something smaller, weaker, but infinitely more cunning. So, when you gaze at the calm surface of a river or walk through the mist of a jungle, remember, our ancestors survived a world filled with monsters, not because they were stronger, but because the monsters disappeared. The Earth we know today is peaceful, only because their reign ended. But in the silence of night, in the whisper of the wind through bamboo, you might almost hear them, the echoes of giants, fading into the dark. In a world long before human eyes first looked up in wonder, the skies themselves were not safe. Above the endless plains of prehistoric Earth, shadows glided so vast they could swallow the Sunday. One of these belonged to Quetzalcoatlus, the nightmare that ruled the heavens. Picture a creature standing as tall as a giraffe, its wings stretching 15 meters from tip to tip. Its skull, narrow and dagger-like, was longer than a grown man's torso. Its wings beat the air with a thunderous pulse, sending gusts strong enough to knock smaller creatures from their feet. Quetzalcoatlus was not built like the graceful birds we know today. Its body was small and dense, its neck absurdly long, and its limbs thin but powerful. When it landed, it walked on all fours, stalking the ground like a monstrous stork. Scientists believe it didn't hunt from above, but from below, striding across ancient plains, snapping up anything unfortunate enough to cross its path. Dogs, lizards, even early mammals the size of humans, all were fair game. With a single motion, it could tilt its head back and swallow prey whole, leaving only a patch of crushed grass and silence in its wake. Now, imagine that thing emerging from the horizon. The wind goes still, animals scatter, and suddenly a shadow falls over you. You look up and see a living aircraft gliding low, its beak glinting in the Sunday. The sight, alone, could freeze a person in terror. To the creatures of its time, Quetzalcoatlus was the embodiment of death from the sky. But even that horror pales compared to what waited beneath the waves. While Quetzalcoatlus ruled the air, the oceans were the dominion of something even more terrifying than Megalodon, the greatest shark to ever exist. 60 feet of muscle and hunger, weighing more than 100 tons, it was the ocean's undisputed monarch. Its teeth, each the size of a man's hand, were serrated blades designed to shear through flesh, bone, and armor alike. To encounter one was not to see a predator, but to witness a force of nature cold, silent, and inevitable. Unlike the smaller great white sharks of today, Megalodon's domain was the entire ocean. From shallow coasts to deep waters, nothing escaped its reach. It fed on whales, giant sea turtles, and even its own kind. Paleontologists have found bite marks on whale bones so massive that only Megalodon could have made them entire skulls bitten clean through. Picture a creature powerful enough to crush a whale's spine in one bite. If it still existed today, no ship smaller than a tanker would be safe on the open sea. The idea alone is enough to make you hesitate before setting foot in the water. There's something uniquely terrifying about the sea, the vastness, the unknown, the darkness that hides what stirs beneath. In that endless blue, Megalodon was the perfect monster. It didn't need to chase its prey. It waited, silent, invisible, until the time was right. A sudden surge, a flash of grey, and the water would turn red in an instant. Many believe it went extinct around 2.6 million years ago, but whispers persist among sailors and divers. Enormous shadows, unexplained sonar readings, the feeling of something vast moving beneath. Science says it's gone, but myths have a way of clinging to the edges of truth. The reign of these predators shaped the world in ways we still feel. Quetzalcoatlus taught the air to fear, while Megalodon ruled the sea with merciless dominance. Together, they made Earth a battlefield of survival, where even the strongest could vanish without a trace. Humanity would never have thrived in such a world. We would have been too busy hiding from above and below. It's humbling to think that the creatures we now study in museums once filled the sky and sea with terror. Their bones lie silent beneath layers of stone, but every fossil tells a story of violence, hunger, and the unrelenting power of life itself. Evolution is not gentle. It creates monsters as easily as it creates beauty. And in those days, the monsters had the upper hand. Imagine the sun setting over an ancient ocean. The horizon burns red, and the waves glitter with dying light. Beneath that calm surface, something stirs vast, ancient, and hungry. The sea explodes upward, a maw lined with knives, a single motion swallowing a whale whole before vanishing into darkness again. For a few moments, the water churns and boils, then it's still once more, as if nothing had happened. That was Megalodon's world, a realm where silence meant danger, and safety was an illusion. Both Quetzalcoatlus and Megalodon disappeared millions of years ago, victims of a changing planet that no longer favored giants. Yet, the ocean still holds great white sharks, and the skies still echo with the cries of birds, descendants of terror made small by time. When we see them, we are looking at ghosts, the echoes of titans that once ruled everything. Next time you look up at the sky or peer down into the deep blue, remember, those places belonged to monsters once. The wind and the waves were their hunting grounds, and if they were to return, even for a day, the earth would remember fear the way it once did. Long before the dinosaurs thundered across the continents, the earth already had its killers. They were not reptiles, not quite mammals either, but something in between a glimpse of the nightmare's evolution would one day perfect. The most feared among them was Gorgonops, a creature that prowled the Permian plains some 260 million years ago. It looked like a wolf built from nightmares, with a reptilian skull and saber-like teeth that jutted far beyond its lower jaw. Its eyes faced forward, locked on prey, its body built for speed. At nearly 3 meters long, it was the first true apex predator, an animal that hunted not to survive, but to dominate. Imagine the air thick with volcanic ash and the smell of burning earth. Across the cracked ground, a herd of reptilian herbivores grazes nervously. The wind shifts. Silence. Then, from behind a cluster of blackened rocks, a Gorgonops explodes into motion. Its jaws snap down with a wet crunch. The creature doesn't roar, it doesn't need to. It kills swiftly, efficiently, and disappears again into the wasteland. In those days, the night was ruled by teeth and instinct, and Gorgonops was king. But nature never allows one ruler for long. Millions of years later, after the age of reptiles and the rise of birds, a new terror emerged, this time on 2 legs. They were known as terror birds, and their name is no exaggeration. Standing up to 3 meters tall, these monstrous birds were built for murder. They couldn't fly, but they could run as fast as a cheetah. Their heads alone measured over 1 meter, tipped with a curved beak like a hooked blade. A single strike could crush bone or sever a spine. They stalked the grasslands of ancient South America, chasing down horses, camels, even early humans, anything small enough to fit into that enormous beak. The world they lived in was dry, sun-scorched, and merciless. Picture an open, plain shimmering in the heat. A herd of young horses bolts across the horizon. One stumbles. Before it can rise, a blur of feathers and dust rushes in. The terror bird slams its beak down again and again, every blow calculated and brutal. The screams fade, and the creature tilts its head back to swallow its meal whole. For millions of years, they were the uncontested rulers of their domain until the rise of big cats and humans ended their reign. Even now, when you see an ostrich running across the savannah, you're looking at a pale echo of those feathered monsters. Yet, no predator, not even the terror bird, evokes raw, primal fear, quite like the serpent that came next. Deep in the steaming jungles of prehistoric South America, the ground trembled with every movement of the titanoboa. The largest snake ever to exist, it stretched over 15 meters long and weighed more than a ton. It slithered through the swamps like a living shadow, silent and unseen until it struck. Titanoboa didn't rely on venom. It didn't need to. Once, it wrapped its massive coils around its prey, be it crocodile, turtle, or mammal. There was no escape. Bones cracked like twigs, air squeezed from lungs, and within minutes, silence returned. If you think modern anacondas are terrifying, imagine one thick as a man's torso, able to crush and swallow you whole. Scientists discovered its fossils in Colombia, where the climate 60 million years ago was hot and humid, the perfect breeding ground for giants. Titanoboa's existence proves that the warmer the world, the larger its monsters. It hunted in a landscape of choking heat, the air buzzing with insects the size of birds, the rivers crawling with prehistoric crocodiles, and it ruled them all. There's something ancient and almost spiritual about snakes. They're among the oldest symbols of death and rebirth across human cultures. But Titanoboa was not a symbol. It was death itself, coiled in the mud, waiting. If you've ever felt that instinctive chill when you see a snake slide through the grass, you're feeling a memory passed down from a time when the earth truly belonged to them. These 3 creatures, Gorgonops, terror birds, and Titanoboa, were not just predators. They were eras unto themselves. Each marked a different age of dominance, each a masterpiece of evolution's darker imagination. They remind us that power on this planet has always shifted from tooth to feather to scale, and every time a ruler fell, something new rose to take its place. Now, all that remains are bones, impressions in stone, and the uneasy knowledge that life once took shapes far more terrible than we can easily imagine. The forests we walk today, the plains and jungles that seem calm, they were once hunting grounds soaked in blood. The earth remembers even when we do not. If you close your eyes and listen long enough, maybe you can still hear them. The rasp of scales across the swamp, the pounding of giant claws on dirt, the hiss of air escaping between massive fangs. The ghosts of ancient predators still whisper beneath our feet. They are gone, but their stories linger, and somewhere deep inside us, we still fear the sound of something moving just beyond the firelight. Deep beneath the ancient forests of Earth, where damp soil swallowed the light and the air stank of decay, something vast stirred among the leaves. Its body shimmered with slick black armor, its hundreds of legs clicking in unison as it crawled across the forest floor. This was Arthropleura, the monster that turned the simple millipede into a living nightmare. 3 meters long, wide as a coffee table, it slithered through the shadows of primeval trees, the sound of its armored plates echoing like whispers in a crypt. No one knows exactly what it ate. Some believe it was harmless, feeding on rotting plants. Others suspect it was an opportunist, capable of attacking smaller creatures that crossed its path. But whether it hunted or not, it didn't matter. Just seeing it was enough to paralyze the bravest heart. Imagine crouching in a prehistoric jungle, hearing that rhythmic clicking grow louder, then watching a wall of black legs ripple out of the darkness. It wasn't fast, but it didn't need to be. Fear moved slower in those days, crawling like the creature itself, unstoppable. Arthropleura ruled the damp corners of the Carboniferous world, when oxygen levels were higher and insects could grow monstrous. Dragonflies with wings like eagles drifted through the fog, while giant centipedes hunted through the underbrush. The forest canopy was alive with movement, but it was the ground that held the true terrors. To ancient eyes, Arthropleura would have seemed immortal, a god of the soil, quiet, patient, relentless. Its reign ended not through battle, but through time itself. As the planet changed, oxygen fell, and the giants of the forest suffocated into extinction. But the oceans were far from quiet. Beneath the rolling surface of ancient seas, another titan was rising, Mosasaurus, the marine overlord, the apex of all aquatic nightmares. If Megalodon was the brute strength of the ocean, Mosasaurus was its fury. 50 feet of muscle and teeth, this reptilian beast ruled the late Cretaceous seas. Its skull resembled that of a crocodile, but longer, narrower, built to slice through water and flesh alike. Hundreds of dagger-like teeth lined its jaws, each designed not to chew, but to tear prey apart in violent bursts. Mosasaurus was not a slow hunter. It was lightning. Fossils show it was capable of twisting its massive body like a serpent, striking with explosive force. Whales, sharks, even other mosasaurs, all were fair game. Imagine swimming through a warm, calm sea, the light filtering down in golden ripples. Then, without warning, the light disappears. The water around you grows cold, and from the darkness below, something emerges immense, ancient, hungry. The last thing you see is a blur of pale scales and the abyss opening to devour you whole. What makes Mosasaurus so haunting is that it lived at the end, just before the meteor that ended the age of reptiles. It was the final echo of a world that belonged to monsters. When the impact came and darkness covered the planet, the great predator's reign ended in silence. Yet, its legend remains fossilized in the bones that humans have dredged from stone. In those long jaws, in those cruel teeth, we glimpse the face of a world without mercy. Together, Arthropleura and Mosasaurus represent two sides of the same terror, the creeping dread of the earth and the devouring chaos of the sea. One hunted in silence through the ferns and shadows, the other turned the oceans into a battlefield of blood. They remind us that danger was never confined to one place. In the world before us, the ground and the water, even the air itself, were alive with killers. And yet, as horrifying as they were perfect. Every muscle, every plate, every fang was a masterpiece of survival. Evolution built them not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. The planet itself demanded monsters to keep its balance. When conditions changed, when climates cooled and seas shifted, their purpose was fulfilled, and they vanished, leaving behind only the whisper of what once was. Today, the ocean waves seem calm, the forests quiet, but deep beneath, life still remembers. The centipede still crawls, the shark still hunts, the crocodile still waits. They are small now, but their ancestors were gods. We live in the age of their shadows. The terror they once commanded has not disappeared. It has only been reduced, hidden within the DNA of things that move when the lights go out. If the world were to warm again, if oxygen thickened and the seas rose, who's to say those titans couldn't return? Somewhere, perhaps in the deepest trench or the darkest jungle, remnants of that ancient power may still linger waiting. Because extinction is not always final. Sometimes it's just a pause. So when you walk barefoot across the ground and feel something shift beneath the soil, or when you look into the sea and feel the pull of something unseen, remember, this planet was not made for comfort. It was made for survival. And once, long ago, survival looked like a nightmare. The earth forgets slowly, the monsters sleep lightly. Extinction is not silence. It is memory carved into the bones of the earth, a whisper carried through time. The monsters we've met, the towering apes, the sky hunters, the sea lords, the serpents and centipedes, are not just ghosts of a lost world. They are reminders of what life can become when the planet dreams without limits. Every fang, every claw, every monstrous size was nature's experiment, testing the boundaries of strength and terror. It's easy to feel safe now, walking beneath electric lights, floating on calm seas, surrounded by civilization's noise. But that comfort is an illusion. The world beneath our feet has always been wild. The ocean still hides shadows too large to name. The forests still breathe with ancient rhythm. Life does not forget how to make monsters, it only waits for the right conditions to do it again. When we look at the fossils of creatures like Megalodon or Mosasaurus, we're not just staring at the past, we're looking at possibilities. These beings ruled because the world allowed them to. Climate shifts, oxygen levels, and evolution all conspired to forge titans. When those conditions changed, so did the shape of life. If they shifted again, who's to say the next age wouldn't give rise to horrors just as great? There's a strange beauty in that thought. The earth is not cruel, it's creative. The same forces that birthed butterflies also made beasts that could crush mountains. Humanity stands at a fragile balance between admiration and arrogance. We believe we've conquered nature, but history tells another story. Every fallen empire of flesh, from Gigantopithecus to Titanoboa, believed it too would last forever. The lesson is not fear, it's humility. Those extinct monsters are not our enemies, they are our teachers. They remind us that survival is temporary, power fleeting, and extinction inevitable when balance is broken. If we continue to consume, to alter climates and poison seas, we may one day meet our own extinction, not at the jaws of monsters, but at the weight of our own making. So let us remember them not as nightmares, but as warnings carved in stone. The earth has been patient for millions of years. It has endured cataclysms, ice ages, fire and death, and through it all, life always returned, reshaped, reborn, sometimes beautiful, sometimes terrible. One day, when humans are gone, perhaps new giants will rise to fill the silence we leave behind. And they too will be magnificent. Until then, listen carefully to the night. The forest hums with echoes, the ocean murmurs with ghosts. The giants are gone, but their memory moves in every shadow, every ripple, every heartbeat of the earth. Because extinction is not the end. It is the turning of a page, and the monsters are only sleeping.